Oh dear. So Congress prepares to debate another bill attacking free speech. And this guy, who I really wonder about him, he says that the Pentagon talks to him. And he seems to know things. Very interesting. Anyhow, he's going to be talking to this gentleman that has a website and has a fairly famous article about the Jewish utopia, which pretty much details out as far back as what 2007 I think it was, about what you're seeing now transpire with Israel becoming the bastion center of all religious authority and what you're allowed to say and not say from there out to the rest of the entire earth, which is what Daniel's visions and John's visions of this beast kingdom, this beast system was all about, with the iron teeth, right? The AI is the mystery of iniquity. What's the power? The AI is the power, and having that all throughout the entire earth, all part and parcel. It all goes together. It's all forming. The global government is forming right under your noses. We're so close to the Messiah coming. I mean, the real one. I always say you can smell him coming in the wind. And you can. You can. Yes. He is coming. I hope he comes very shortly, fulfilling this Feast of Trumpets. If not, he will just be doing another dress rehearsal, and we'll have to wait until next autumn to see if he fulfills that. But things may be so advanced at this point, and people so tired. I know, I understand. Trust me, I understand. They just have such a hard time hanging on, but we are called to wait for our blessed hope and to hold fast, for he is coming and he loves us. So he's going to talk to Ted Pike. So I haven't found that article yet. I had it up and then I pulled it down. So Reverend Ted Pike's video documentaries, The Other Israel and Why the Middle East Bleeds, are number one in their video categories on Google. The Other Israel, and nearly 30,000 viewings since spring, ranks most relevant to the subject of Israel in unbelief. Why the Middle East Bleeds is the most relevant to the Middle East. And I don't know what those are at all. Now, Pike's latest production, Zionism and Christianity, Unholy Alliance, is also available at Google. This groundbreaking work documents Jewish control of American media. Triple neon bouncing, light that upwards. Yes. Yes. If you do your slightest ounce of research, you will find out that that one group of unbelieving people are hyper dominating the American media. That is so true. I can't begin to tell you how important that is to understand. Yes. Unholy Alliance also exposes the terrifying book, The Jewish Utopia, by this individual, Higger, endorsed by Solomon, blah, 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 all these other people, Judaism in America, and the Kala, or Council of Texas Rabbis. Utopia, listen, foretells worldwide slaughter of all the Christian idolaters, Jesus worshippers, Trinity or Godhead worshippers, when Jewish activism finally prevails over Christianity. Drink that in. Wow. I've not laid eyes on something like that in my entire life, nor have I ever had that thought occupy my brain, ever. Oh, my brain cells are very unfamiliar with this construct. Put in this context, prevails over Christianity. Well, it's interesting because our Father said that the gates of hell would not be able to overcome us. And if you listen to Michael Heiser, he says that it's actually said a little bit differently in the original. He says that the gates of hell will not be able to withstand us, meaning we're going on the attack. Only Gentiles who renounce Christ and accept Noahide laws of Judaism will be allowed to live, according to Hager. Unholy Alliance also examines the Harris. Okay, I didn't even want to hear about that. I really don't, because either you're born again and the Holy Spirit is in you forever, or there's no point in having salvation, Christ being alive on this planet. There's absolutely nothing that even matters. Now, are there fake Christians for which they never got saved and they're not saved? Yes. So I didn't want to hear about that. I really don't. Let me see here. Find out what else. Anything else important? Okay, so there is some Google Play here, but I don't want to get into all that right now. Let's go back to Steve and see what's cooking. Oy vey, right?
Which you can find at truthtellers.org. And those of you that watched our last broadcast with Reverend Pike saw that, there was some censorship going on, and they forcibly removed our interview that we had with Reverend Pike. But without any further ado, Reverend Pike, you have just published on your website today an emergency alert about the Anti-Semitism Awareness Bill, which is worse than the Equality Bill. We also share that on our website, IsraeliNewsLive.org. But Reverend Pike, if you would, can you tell us about what's going on with this latest news that you're bringing out?
Yes, well, thank you so much, Stephen. First, I'd just like briefly to express my appreciation and congratulation to all viewers on Israeli News Live and Adam Green's show who called into the Senate Judiciary Republicans last June protesting the Equality Act. You, the listeners, along with the Ben Nunes and Green, as well as Jeff Rentz, elicited calls flooding the judiciary throughout most of June. And this clearly caused the Democrats to pull back from even discussing the Equality Act with hostile judiciary Republicans. Yes, the Equality Act could move forward this fall, and I'll alert everyone at truthtellers.org if it does. But meanwhile, thanks to your protest calling and God's help, it is for now dead in the water. But we have a new, even more formidable threat facing us today. I'll tell you about it, so get paper and pen handy, because if we call again like we called last spring...
Okay, wait a minute. These people, seriously, they're in control of all the technology, all the money, all of the infrastructure. They have the military. They have the propaganda. They're in charge of all the media. They're in charge of how much money is in your money, meaning the worth of the dollar. They're in charge of creating martial law when they feel like it. You mean to tell me that they're so threatened that Americans would call and protest something that we actually have some kind of power over them? Are you kidding me? I'm sorry. I smell a rat. I do. I hate to think that everybody is in on it, but when things are so highly televised and when these ideas are put out to the masses that you just like the movies, you can be the rebel, you can fight it, you can do this. Not on this one. It's the Antichrist is coming. This to me feels like false hope. I do want to hear what he has to say, but this idea that you need to just all get on the phone and bark and blah 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 blah. Look, they've already signed Noahide laws. They want to kill you. Do you think they care about your opinion? And when they craft law? Are you kidding me? Oh goodness. Oh wow. Okay, they're gonna try to criminalize speech that is critical of Israel in any way, form, or fashion, which makes sense when you consider that the Antichrist is going to be Jewish, and this law, this law that they want to get passed will make it so that nobody can warn about the biblical Jewish Antichrist that's coming. Do you see where that's going? I don't know if they'll talk about this in here, but he's going to talk here in a moment about how the religious right are being used like little puppets to further this, to push this, to cannibalize, if you will, Christianity, metaphorically, legally. And I've already told you that there are leaders within the Christian right that are Masons. Let's listen for a little bit here. This is a big deal.
The Anti-Semitism Awareness Act, which I will shorten throughout this talk to ASAA, looms as the greatest threat to free speech in Congress today. In my recent article, I discuss how the ADL's deceptive definition of anti-Semitism contained in ASAA is beguiling a large section of the religious right into support of this extremely dangerous bill. In his perennial search to limit speech critical of Israel, the Jewish ADL found in the U.S. Department of Education, which I'll shorten to USDE in this article, found an amenable ally. It persuaded the USDE that rampant anti-Semitism exists on U.S. college and university campuses. ADL alleges many cases of harassment of Jewish students. ADL says the only way to end such discrimination is through criminalization of offending students and professors, even educational institutions who tolerate such bias and intimidation. To do this, they have convinced the USDE that the definition of anti-Semitism created by ADL's front, the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, which I'll shorten to IHRA, plus the International Holocaust Alliance's 11 examples of what it considers anti-Semitic hate speech, should become the criteria of what is anti-Semitic worldwide. Thus, ADL, advising USDE, could create a veritable federal dictionary of what kinds of speech on campuses would be made illegal. IHRA's definitions of anti-Semitism, and there are about 14 of them, would be compared with definitions of discrimination set forth in Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Any student or professor in violation of the above could be prosecuted under federal law by the USDE's Office for Civil Rights. ADL's preferred IHRA definition and its 11 examples are thus central to its Anti-Semitism Awareness Act. Now, back to how a huge section of the largely Pentecostal U.S. religious right has embraced the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act. Pastor John Hagee is infamous among truly Bible-believing Christians. He teaches heretically that pious, observant Jews, by virtue of Christ's covenant with Abraham, have assurance of salvation even after rejecting Christ. CUFI, with over 5 million members, I should say Christians United for Israel, which I will shorten to CUFI, Christians United for Israel, with over 5 million members, has enormous clout. Hagee can easily muster 5,000 followers to descend on Congress in support of pro-Israel legislation. That happened on July 9th, 2019, when for 3 days, 5,000 of his Christians United for Israel CUFI members walked the halls of the U.S. Senate and House office buildings lobbying for passage of the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act.
Oh, wow. It says the text of this document we're talking about could not be clearer. It gives 11 examples of anti-Semitic hate speech. They're meant to advise. It would be considered. Wow. If you broke this and you came under this, you would be subject to the full penalties of the federal law, and they want it to go worldwide.